step into the heart of the Renaissance, a time of breathtaking art, soaring ambition, and deadly intrigue. In this glittering, treacherous world, one name echoes through the centuries, whispered with a mix of fascination and fear: Lucrezia Borgia. History has branded her the devil's daughter, a poisoner, a seductress, a pawn in her family's insatiable quest for power. But was she truly the monster of legend, or a tragic figure caught in a web of deceit, spun by the two most powerful men in her life, her father, Pope Alexander VI, and her ruthless brother, Cesare Borgia? Today, we peel back the layers of myth and propaganda to uncover the real Lucrezia. We'll journey from the opulent yet dangerous courts of the Vatican to the grand palaces of Ferrara, tracing the path of a young woman whose life was defined by scandal, tragedy, and an unyielding will to survive. Was she a willing accomplice in her family's crimes, or a victim manipulated from childhood? Let's separate fact from fiction and meet the woman behind the infamous legend. Lucrezia was born in 1480 into a world where power was the ultimate currency. Her father, Rodrigo Borgia, was not just a cardinal but a man driven by an all-consuming ambition to place his family at the pinnacle of Italian society. When he became Pope Alexander VI in 1492, the Borgia family's influence exploded, and Lucrezia, just a girl of 12, was transformed from a nobleman's daughter into the most valuable pawn on the political chessboard of Italy. Her beauty was legendary. Chroniclers described her as having golden hair that fell to her knees, a radiant complexion, and an enchanting grace. But in the world of the Borgias, beauty was a tool. Before she was even a teenager, her father began arranging her marriage. She was a bargaining chip, a way to forge alliances and secure territories. Her own desires, her own future were secondary to the family's grand design. Her first betrothal was broken for a more advantageous match. Then came her first marriage at the tender age of 13 to Giovanni Sforza, Lord of Pesaro. This union was a purely political move, designed to align the Borgias with the powerful Sforza dynasty of Milan. The wedding was a lavish spectacle, a display of the Borgias' newfound wealth and power. But behind the scenes, the political winds were already shifting. Just a few years later, the Sforzas were no longer useful allies. The Pope needed them gone. But a marriage, especially a noble one, couldn't simply be dissolved without cause. So the Borgias concocted a humiliating and public excuse. Giovanni Sforza, they claimed, was impotent and the marriage had never been consummated. Giovanni was furious. He fought the accusation, but against the power of the Pope, he stood no chance. He was forced to sign papers admitting to his own impotence, and the marriage was annulled. It was during this scandal that the first dark rumors about Lucrezia began to circulate. Giovanni Sforza, in a fit of vengeful rage, accused Lucrezia of having an incestuous relationship with her own father and brother. This was a shocking and explosive accusation, and though it came from a bitter, humiliated man, the mud stuck. The image of a depraved Borgia family began to take shape, with Lucrezia at its corrupt center. Was there any truth to it? Most historians today believe it was pure slander, a political weapon used to discredit the Borgias. But the rumor was too scandalous, too sensational to die. It became the cornerstone of the Lucrezia Borgia myth. Freed from her first husband, Lucrezia was not single for long. A new, more powerful alliance was needed. This time, the chosen groom was Alfonso of Aragon, the Duke of Bisceglie. By all accounts, this was a genuine love match. Alfonso was handsome, noble, and Lucrezia was reportedly devoted to him. For a brief period, it seemed she might have found happiness. They had a son, Rodrigo, and Lucrezia settled into the life of a young wife and mother. But in the world of the Borgias, happiness was fleeting. The political landscape shifted once again. Her brother, the brilliant and brutal Cesare Borgia, now saw Alfonso and his Neapolitan connections as a liability. What happened next is a chilling example of Borgia ruthlessness. One summer evening in 1500, as Alfonso was leaving the Vatican, he was attacked by assassins on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica. He was severely wounded but survived, and Lucrezia nursed him devotedly. But Cesare was not a man to leave a job unfinished. A month later, as Alfonso was recovering, Cesare's most trusted henchman burst into his chambers and strangled him in his bed. Lucrezia was devastated. Her husband had been murdered by her own brother. The official story was that Alfonso had been plotting against Cesare, but no one believed it. This brutal act exposed the cold, calculating heart of the Borgia ambition. Lucrezia was sent away to grieve, but her grief was inconvenient. The family needed her for another marriage, another alliance. This time, the prize was the powerful Duchy of Ferrara. The groom was Alfonso d'Este, the heir to the dukedom. The d'Este family was one of the oldest and most respected noble houses in Italy, and they were initially horrified at the prospect of marrying their heir to the Pope's illegitimate, twice-married daughter with a scandalous reputation. The negotiations were long and difficult, but Pope Alexander was relentless. He offered an enormous dowry, political favors, and applied immense pressure until the d'Este family finally relented. In 1502, Lucrezia left Rome for Ferrara, leaving behind her son from her second marriage. She would never see him again. This move marked a turning point in her life. She was no longer just the Pope's daughter. She was about to become the Duchess of Ferrara. In Ferrara, away from the direct influence of her father and brother, Lucrezia began to build a new life and a new reputation for herself. When her father, Pope Alexander VI, died in 1503, the Borgia Empire crumbled almost overnight. Cesare, stripped of his power and papal support, was captured and eventually killed. Lucrezia, now in Ferrara, was suddenly on her own. Many expected her to fall with her family, but she proved them wrong. In Ferrara, Lucrezia flourished. She transformed from a political pawn into a respected and capable ruler. She established a vibrant court that attracted poets, artists, and thinkers. She became a patron of the arts, commissioning works and fostering a culture of creativity. When her husband, Duke Alfonso, was away at war, Lucrezia ruled Ferrara in his stead, proving to be a wise and competent administrator. The people of Ferrara, who had initially been suspicious of her, came to admire and love their duchess. They called her the Good Duchess. She was a devoted mother to her children with Alfonso d'Este, creating the stable family life she had never known. She was also deeply religious, spending her later years involved in charitable work and founding convents. The scandalous woman of Rome seemed to have vanished, replaced by a pious, respected Renaissance duchess. So, who was the real Lucrezia Borgia? Was she the incestuous poisoner of the Roman rumors or the beloved Duchess of Ferrara? The truth, as it often is, lies somewhere in the middle. In her youth, she was undeniably a pawn, used and manipulated by her family. Her marriages were chess moves in her father's grand game. She was surrounded by violence and corruption, and she likely had to make difficult compromises just to survive. The accusations of incest and poisoning, however, are largely considered to be propaganda spread by her family's many enemies. There is no credible evidence that she ever poisoned anyone. But she was not merely a passive victim. In Ferrara, when given the chance, she demonstrated intelligence, strength, and political skill. She successfully navigated the treacherous world of Italian politics and secured her own position, building a legacy far removed from the scandals of her youth. She outlived the infamy of the Borgia name and redefined herself on her own terms. Lucrezia Borgia's story is a powerful reminder of how history is often written by the victors, and how a woman's reputation can be forged and twisted by the men around her. She was a product of a brutal age, a survivor who walked a tightrope between power and peril. She was neither a saint nor the devil's daughter, but a complex, intelligent woman who managed to find her own light in the long, dark shadow of her family. Her life is a testament to resilience, a fascinating chapter in the dramatic story of the Italian Renaissance. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's most fascinating figures. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.